Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Unfortunately, whenever I make one of these videos, it's not for good weather. Today is no exception. So I thought I would make one of these videos, and I'll probably make a couple of them throughout the week as we head into the latter part of the week, where, as you can see on the screen here, now Hurricane Florence is marching across the central and western Atlantic towards the southeastern U.S. coast. This shows you the latest satellite image. So the sun is rising this morning. You can clearly see a well-defined storm, symmetrical. It's strengthening. Overnight, it's been starting to rapidly intensify. So yesterday, it re-achieved hurricane status. It was a tropical storm. The winds increased beyond 75 miles an hour, and now they're upwards of 105, 110 miles an hour. It's very likely that at 11 o'clock this morning, it will be upgraded to a Category 3 hurricane, which is a major, major hurricane as it moves towards the west. I thought I'd show you the big picture here. So this satellite will show you kind of the big picture view once it loads here. It'll basically show you yesterday, then this was overnight tonight, and then this will be this morning as the sun is rising, and you can see the development. So it's kind of ragged looking yesterday. It's hard to pick out the eye, but the last few frames you can see it's becoming much better organized. It's much larger, much more symmetrical, and it's certainly gaining strength. I also like this because it shows you the relative position to the United States. So here's North Carolina right here. There's South Carolina. There's Florida. So you can see it's still far away. So we're talking still 3 or 4 days it's going to take to reach us. But when it does look like it's going to be a very, very severe storm system. So this is the current track from the National Hurricane Center. So there's its current position that you just saw on the satellite. It's moving towards the northwest, and it's going to continue on that track and actually speed up a bit as it heads towards the coast. And you can see the impact is likely going to be somewhere from Cape Hatteras all the way down to just south of Charleston. So that's still a huge area of the coastline. So don't pay attention to where this hurricane symbol is there. So that's just the center of the cone. There's a very high degree of likelihood that it's going to hit somewhere in between this cone. It could be as far south as Charleston, or it could be as far north as the Outer Banks. So you've got to be very, very careful when you look at this cone. Don't just say, oh, well, it's going to hit here. That's not exactly what this means. So impacts across both North and South Carolina, pretty much no matter where you live, are going to be pretty profound, I think, as we head towards the later part of the week. And so much of it depends on exactly where it hits. So locally in Charlotte, worst case scenario for us is it hits along South Carolina's coast and then moves inland. And you can see Charlotte is not far from the coast when a hurricane comes in at that angle. Worst case for my friends that live in Greensboro over to Raleigh is if it does take a track like this, where it hits kind of the Wilmington area and Raleigh's in this area, and then you get a lot of wind and a lot of rain. And I'll show you those possibilities here in a second. So why does the cone look like that? These are all the different computer runs kind of put together. So you can see all the different lines are possibilities. You can see they pretty much end when you get to South Carolina-Georgia border. So it's probably not going to hit farther south. And they also kind of end once you get about to the Outer Banks. So that's why the cone looks the way it does. Notice it's very narrow here, but then it widens as we get closer or later in time, closer to landfall. So we see somewhere along the North or South Carolina coast is where this thing is likely to make an impact. I can show you a little bit more data. This shows you the intensity. So right now we're kind of at the Category 2, 3 threshold, and you can see almost every computer model has it achieving at least Category 4 status for the remainder of its time until it makes landfall, which is, these are in hours. This is about 4 days from now. So it's likely that this is going to be at least a Category 3 when it hits, probably a Category 4 when it hits, and wherever it hits along the coast, it would be pretty devastating. We haven't been hit by a Category 4 in North Carolina in a very, very long time. So then there's two computer models I thought I would just show you. This is the American model, the GFS, and you can see this is the run from last night. So there's its current position, and it shows a northwest track, and it has an impact kind of between Cape Hatteras and Wilmington. It's kind of in the northern and eastern corner of North Carolina, and then kind of stalling out here for several days. That's one possibility. However, when you read the Hurricane Center's discussions and just from experience, the storms earlier this year, plus most of the storms last year, if you remember the storm that was supposed to hit eastern Florida and Miami, that's what the GFS was saying, but it actually recurved much farther to the west. So it tends to recurve or turn storms a little too early. This is the latest European model. This was run yesterday evening, and this traditionally has been the quote-unquote more reliable model when it comes to at least the hurricane forecast over the last year or two. And you can see it has a much more southern track impacting kind of between Wilmington and Myrtle Beach and then moving inland. And you can see if the storm takes a track like this here in Charlotte, we would have a much more profound impact from the storm system. So it really depends on the track. If this is the track, we would see some wind and rain here in Charlotte, but it wouldn't be all that bad. It would be really terrible in places like Raleigh, where they would get huge amounts of rain and high wind. If it takes a more southern track, you'd be talking from Wilmington all the way to Charlotte. You would see tremendous wind, a lot of rain. So it really depends on the track. And as you can see, going back, the track is very wide, and as the storm moves farther westward, this track will narrow. So we will have a much better understanding later today, and then an even better understanding tomorrow. And I know that doesn't make the people along the coast or slightly inland feel better, but that's just the way this is. So there's no exact landfall spot. You yourself can see the data and how spread the data is. This shows you another look. This is that same European model. It shows all the different solutions, and you can see again from Cape Hatteras basically down to the South Carolina-Georgia border with a slightly more concentrated grouping of them kind of near the Myrtle Beach area, aiming towards the central part of the state. The other thing that's going to be really bad with this storm is almost every model has it moving inland and then just kind of stalling out and just sitting over the Carolinas for 2 or 3 days. This will drop huge amounts of rain. So the first big story is going to be the direct hit, wherever it hits along the coast, and whatever the Category 4 devastation it will bring. Well, Category 4 will do a lot of damage. And then when it moves inland and sits over the Carolinas, we could see well over a foot of rain. And again, depending on the track, the northern side typically sees the most rainfall on a landfalling hurricane. So if it's more south, much of North Carolina will get hit with heavy rainfall, 1 to 2 feet of rain. If it hits farther north into northeastern North Carolina, then you're talking about southern Virginia and those regions seeing a lot of rainfall. So suffice it to say, there's a wide cone. We don't know exactly where it's going to hit yet. It's strengthening right now, and it's making it a kind of a beeline for the Carolina coastline. So hopefully that was informative, and I will give you another update probably later today or tomorrow once some fresh model data comes in. So enjoy your Monday, everybody. I'll see you later.